Hello, my friend, and welcome to the very first episode of the Conscious Creator Podcast. I'm David. You may have heard me on some of my other podcasts, and I created this show specifically for those of you out there who might be teachers, healers, guides, coaches, mentors, or you're creating some kind of project or business in the world, but you want to do it in a mindful way. You want to create consciously. And when I started down this path, I was living in Hawaii. I was the director of a nonprofit meditation and mysticism school, very woo-woo, living in Hawaii. So I spent years working on a farm there, being a kayak tour guide, a volcano tour guide. I did so many odd jobs as I was working my way through school. And then eventually I became a teacher and director of that school. But that school was a nonprofit, and I was working 70, 80 hours a week sometimes, just putting my heart into it. And I started burning out. And this was in my kind of late 20s, and I didn't have another path. This is what I wanted to do with my life. Uh, this was before podcasting, YouTube was just getting going. There just weren't a lot of avenues. And so I started reading books, 4-hour work weeks, 4-hour work week, just consuming as many books on business as I could because I wanted to be free. I wanted to work for myself and teach. And I just had no idea how to do it on my own. So I slowly taught myself. I hired some business coaches when I got enough money. And my brother very kindly let me live on his couch for a year after I left Hawaii to start to create my first courses, online courses, and starting to teach out in the world and not just on an island as much as I loved Hawaii. And so I kind of rode that first wave of podcasting and online content. I got into an app called Insight Timer, which is the world's most used meditation app. And that is where my biggest student base is at the moment. And I'll do some episodes for those of you who are teachers or interested in being teachers and getting your content on there and how you can be successful on that platform. And so I started the very slow, difficult way with no money, just reading books. How do I do this? How do I figure this out? This is hard. But I was absolutely sure that I wanted to teach, that I didn't want to work for anybody else, and I wanted to create something on my own to share with the world. So I think it takes three elements to be a conscious creator. The first is you have to be cultivating your awareness. You have to be evolving consciously from the inside out. So whether that's meditation, therapy, coaching, healing, retreats, contemplation, writing, you've got to be working on yourself. That I think is fundamental. We wouldn't be here if we didn't know that. The second is there's a desire in you to live a balanced and fulfilled life in an independent way. Now, you could be independent inside of an organization. Maybe you have a level of creativity and, your organization or company gives you room to create. But for the most part, a lot of us in the world that we live in now, as conscious creators, as teachers and guides, we have to find our own way. We have to pave our own path. And it's not easy to make a living and to reach people when there's so much noise out there. There's so many platforms. There's just so many directions you can go in. It can really be overwhelming. But the second element is you have to want to live a fulfilled life through your creation, right? That should be part of the motivation. And then the third is you want to make an impact. And I've known a lot of people who they forget about the third. You're like, yeah, of course I want to make an impact, but I really want to make money. It's like, no, no, no. You truly deep in your heart have to want to make an impact, help people and make a difference. And if you don't always feel that, that's okay. That's something that you can cultivate as well over time. Like I remember as I started teaching more and more online, I would get all these comments. Thank you. That was helpful. Really helped. The meditation helped with my anxiety, with my stress, with my fear. You helped me fall asleep. And that feedback actually helped my heart open. And it became kind of a feedback loop where the more I would help, the more feedback I would get, and my heart would open even more. And I would realize, wow, I'm making an impact. It feels good. And I want to make more of an impact. So to me, those are the three main elements. And this podcast is going to be about getting deep into the details of how we can do it and do it in a successful way. That being said, in the West, generally in the quote unquote West, we obsess over growth, we obsess over money, material things, always being bigger, more famous, all of those things, that. And so we want to be conscious about it and only create what truly fulfills us, not to fulfill somebody else's expectations or the world or our egos. As a teacher of mine used to say, where ego, I go. And some of us are inflators. I'm the best thing in the world's ever seen. And some of us are deflators. I'm just a little bag of poopy. Right? And maybe we oscillate. And so as we become more conscious as creators, we can refine our character and our energy for when we inflate and when we deflate. And we can meditate, look inwards, and really find out what is it that I'm here to create, to share, and make an impact with. And if we do it with that kind of intentionality and awareness, there's a much higher chance things are going to work out. Or maybe we fail, but we fail really well. And then we move on and create the next thing. So thank you for being on this journey with me. I hope to bring you a lot of really useful information and episodes. And please send me your questions and your comments. It'll help me create more content. And this is the very first episode of the Conscious Creator podcast. And I'm doing it in my studio, in my house in Boulder, Colorado. Please don't come knocking on my door. And just a tiny bit of background as we finish. I teach. I have my own meditation app, book, retreats. I have a company where I have a team of virtual assistants that we outsource to other creators called Align Virtual Teams. I have a school for energy work. I do a little bit of coaching here and there, and I do a lot of creating content, recorded and live classes, meditations, workshops, all of that to help people grow. And so from the outside, it looks like I'm really, really busy. And even just saying that sounds overwhelming, but I've actually found a nice balance and pace in my life. And if you were to look at my calendar, which maybe I'll share at some point, you'd see that it's mostly wide open. And I take very few meetings and calls. And I mostly have time to sit, contemplate, meditate, and create. And I've done that very, very purposefully. And we'll talk about that, how to do that in some future episodes. I started with absolutely no money. I wish my parents maybe just rained cash on me, but I think it was helpful that they didn't. And so I really bootstrapped it, and perhaps I have a higher risk tolerance than some other people. I lived in a tent for a while in Hawaii with no money, just making my way. But I want you to have an easier time than I did and take some maybe shortcuts around, or at least avoid some obstacles you don't need to go through. There's a lot better technology today. There's faster, easier ways to create and to share with the world. And I'm going to share all of that knowledge with you on this podcast. So thank you for being here with me. And I'll see you in the next episode of the Conscious Creator Podcast. Take care.